Hey everyone, welcome to this week's DVC show. Coming up, don't be a DVC Karen. Hello everyone, coming to you from the Bob Varley studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined this week by my good friends from the DVC store, Mr. Jerry Saito.
This week, I'm Karen.
You are a Karen, aren't you? I know it. He's a nice guy on camera, but joining us via Skype, Mr. Paul Krieger.
Hey, everybody.
Never a Karen, Paul, right?
I try.
And our own personal Karen, back behind the controls, producer Mr. Corey Fiasconaro.
Can I please speak to your manager? And welcome home.
Okay, so before we get started, if you are interested in purchasing a DVC resale contract, or if you're interested in selling your contract or upgrading your contract, renting points, putting your points up for rent, one call, one visit to a website solves your problem. 1-800-550-6493 is the number for the DVC store, or dvcstore.com. They can help you with all of those things, especially if you have questions about the process or about what the right option for you is. These guys have been doing it for decades, and they know that market inside and out. So 1-800-550-6493 or dvcstore.com. So I want to get out in front of what is going to be said in the comments. I know that there may be a tinge of hypocrisy in me saying don't be a DVC Karen, because I can go that route sometimes. I fully embrace that. I'm trying to be better about it, which is why I thought this might be a good topic. So what is a DVC Karen? Well, the main thing that I see is people that over expect what they are entitled to as a result of being a DVC member. If you head to our Facebook group, DVC Fan, we've seen evidence of that in that group. Not a lot, really and truly. It's an incredible group of people, but every so often, we'll get people who think that because they are, they bought 50 resale points at Saratoga Springs, that DVC is supposed to do all these things for them. So I really think it's about really illuminating what are reasonable expectations for DVC members and what aren't. So what are reasonable expectations? You'll be able to use your points the way they were designed to be used, right? I want to use my points at Copper Creek. I bought a reservation there. I have an 11-month window. And that when I get there, that room will be clean and in good working order. That's it. That's it. That's all you are entitled to, really and truly. The benefits, the perks, that stuff, we go in knowing it's subject to change. And if it changes, we may not be happy about it, but that's where I see this entitlement coming in. Now, Paul, you are on, you manage that DVC Fan group and website. Talk to me about your impressions of who's a DVC Karen.
You hit the nail on the head when it comes to what we are actually entitled to as DVC members. A lot of us forget the contracts we signed, and sitting in that room, whether it be in the DVC Preview Center or having the documents explained to us via phone or something like that, what actually we are allowed to have, and what we aren't. The most recent representation of this is the reduction in borrowing that has occurred. And people are up in arms in that. I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with that. We all have our own opinions on it. but when it comes down to what you're actually entitled to. Now, the most recent, I would call it Karenism over on the DVC fan group, is we've heard a lot of people saying that they've been receiving upgrades recently in checking into their DVC results.
That's a good one.
And we're getting a lot of posts of, how do I get my upgrade? Who do I need to talk to get my upgrade? Who do I complain to so that I can be upgraded? And it does seem to be causing a bit of a problem, because an upgrade is just that. It's random. It's spontaneous. You look at the phone when you get the message that your room's ready, and you walk into a 1-bedroom instead of a deluxe studio. That's how those things are supposed to work. And instead, we've heard tales of people complaining that they didn't get their upgrade that they were entitled to.
The other one, that's a great one, by the way. And you're right. We do hear a lot of that. You're not entitled to an upgrade because somebody else got it. It's based on what's available. And if they can do it, they will. But to sit there and pitch a fit that you didn't, like the people that think because they're DVC fans and they happen to be in Orlando at the moment and they are staying at a resort off-site, they should have access to Top of the World Lounge. I have seen full-on meltdowns at the elevator with that poor cast member saying, "No, sir, I'm sorry. You have to be staying. On points. You have to be staying on points at a Disney resort." Now, sometimes, depending on how busy the lounge is, if you're a DVC member staying on site and not on points, they will let you up. They will let you up. But the technical rule, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, is when you're staying on points at Walt Disney World. Or am I getting that wrong?
I believe if you're staying on property, you're allowed Top of the World Lounge as long as you are a DVC member. So you don't necessarily have to have the blue card, but as long as you're staying on property, you're.
But it's all, even then, it is based on availability.
Right.
Now, one of the nights I saw a full-on meltdown was July 4th last year, when they closed Top of the World for a private party for the 4th of July. And I understood certain Bay Lake Tower members who had booked in advance because they wanted access to the lounge, and DVC didn't communicate that as well as they should have. And they didn't find out until basically July 3rd or July 4th that no, it's a private party you had to pay extra for. You can't get up there. They corrected that with their New Year's Eve party. They gave anybody who was already booked at Bay Lake Tower first dibs to buy the ticket to go up. But even still, even with the knowledge of it, there were people who threw a full-on fit. Access to Top of the World Lounge is not guaranteed for anybody. I don't care how many points you own, where you're staying. It's not guaranteed. So it's a perk, not an entitlement. It's a perk, not an entitlement. Much the same way an upgrade is a perk, not an entitlement.
Well, listen, I'm special. I'm going to get my upgrades. If I come to the parks and my magic band lights up purple and you don't say welcome home, I expect a $25 gift card.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go to Top of the World Lounge. It doesn't matter what day it is.
Thank you, Karen.
What about you, Jerry? What do you think? Or
well, I got to be honest. I actually was a Karen personally one time when I stayed at Animal Kingdom. I think not knowing. I must have had amnesia or something, but I, for some reason, asked for new towels, and they're like, "Sir, the towels that you have in your room are the towels that you're going to have. Unless you want to pay an extra service charge to get extra towels, those are your towels." And I was like, "Excuse me?" So I was kind of thrown off one time by that, and then I realized quickly, like, "Oh, you just get replacement towels at the pool, no problem." But anyway, one time I did call, and I was like, "Hey, shouldn't I get new towels?" So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Another thing is like housekeeping. That's not daily. A lot of people might not know that, and if you're expecting housekeeping, you could be a little bit surprised when it doesn't show up that next day. So, couple
Yeah, housekeeping is another one
Yeah.
that I've heard. That we know that it's, towel and trash service every few days
Yeah.
and full cleaning after a week. And then they say, I want my room clean. Okay, well, that's going to cost you X number of dollars. And they have a meltdown. Why should I have to? Because that's what you agreed to.
You're right.
And like I said, I've gotten a lot better. I've gotten a lot better over the years. There was a time I look back and I'm ashamed of how I've behaved at points in the parks with that sense of entitlement. And I mean, look, you know what? Disney World in general, this is not limited to DVC, Disney World in general, loaded with Karens. I'm paying thousands of dollars to be here. So is everybody else, idiot. Everybody's paying thousands of dollars to be there. You're not special. You're not the only person in the world. Yet we see it all the time. Right now, and I know I'm walking into the lion's den with this, but the mask issue. I shouldn't have to wear a mask. My constitutional rights. Your constitutional rights don't mean crap on private property. It's private property. They can literally tell you, we're not going to let you in unless you're wearing pumps and hot pants. And if you're not wearing pumps and hot pants, you don't get in. That's their right. It's private property. These are the same people, by the way, that if you go onto their property without their permission and do something, they'll shoot you. And that's perfectly justified. Again, Karen.
And you probably shouldn't talk about your constitutional rights while you're hitting cast members. That's probably not.
There's that too.
Not a good look.
There's that too. Yeah, no, the masks on private property have definitely brought out the Karens. So it's, and this has always been the case. This isn't new. We've seen it before. We had the Karens that were hiring handicapped people to get access to the guest assistance pass to, get backdoored onto attractions. That was a thing, which is why they had to change the whole guest assistance pass at Disney World, because that became a thing. Because they were too good to wait in lines. They were too good to arrange for fast passes. And so not only are Karens annoying, but they can also, really affect the experience everybody else has. So how do you avoid being a Karen? Number one, understand what the rules are. Understand what you agreed to as a DVC member when you signed up. And then ask yourself when you're getting upset, and this is something I have to do myself, when you're getting upset, am I being unreasonable here? Am I expecting something that I'm not entitled to?
Take a step back and think about those words that are going to come out of your mouth before you say them.
Well, do I really believe in this situation that I am so incredibly special and entitled? And is that the person I want to be? Now, if your answer to that question is yes, okay. Choices have consequences. I always pay attention to that. I try my best because I can get very entitled and I can get very pompous. It's nobody that has watched these shows for any length of time is going to have the slightest problem believing that. But I'm aware that I can go there. I'm aware I can be like that, and I don't like it. And I don't want to be that guy, so I work at it. And we're not going to get into what emotional damage leads you to a place where you become that person. Just have to accept that for some of us, that's the person we can be. And if we're not okay with that, so, one thing I got really good with, not blaming the cast member in front of me if there was a systemic failure somewhere. If my reservation's not ready at 4:00, my room's not ready at 4:00, or something goes wrong that is not the direct result of the person standing in front of me, don't take it out on them. I have watched guests melt down on these poor cast members. And that's why I could never do the job, because I'd be in prison. I'd be in jail if these people started going off on me like that. I mean, we've all seen it though. And we all know it goes on. It's very easy for us to point the finger and say, oh, look what this one does. My father had a saying, God rest his soul. Father had a saying, every time you point that finger, Pete, there are 3 pointing right back at you. And it's a very true statement. So it really, the way to stop being a Karen is to it's like AA. Before you can really address your alcoholism, you got to acknowledge that you're an alcoholic first. So you got to acknowledge that you do it. And then you got to ask yourself, am I okay with that? And if you're not, what can you do? What can you do to be better about it? And look, the fact that it's called a Karen is a little unfair, because I've seen men do it more than I've seen women do it.
And I would just like to plug, I know somebody who definitely watches all these shows whose name is Karen, and I just want to apologize.
We're not talking about you.
We're not talking about you, Karen. You're great.
Right. We're not talking about a DVC member who also happens to be named Karen. We are talking about, the meme of a Karen, or in pop culture at the moment. Yeah. What else? Anything else? Anything else we can add to the list of?
The only other thing I was going to throw in there is that Karens typically don't understand how what they do affects others, or in the case of DVC, what it costs others. Normally, I think a Karen would be the same person that's complaining that they didn't get an upgrade, but then trashes their room, which then causes a trickle-down effect. It costs all of us money that's occurred, because we're paying annual dues on the upkeep of those rooms, and it's just not fair to the membership as a whole. So remember, DVC, it's a membership. We're all in this together. So,
and it's also about a measured response to a situation. So you order a meal and the meal comes out wrong, or the meal comes out cold. No, you have a right. You're paying for that meal. You have a right to expect your meal is going to come out in a reasonable amount of time, and when it does, that it's going to come out hot. And saying, hey, listen, this is cold. I would like you to do it again, or, I have a problem with this. You're being reasonable. You're not, having a meltdown like a 3-year-old. That's a measured response to that. How many times have we seen the response to that be, how dare you? And they berate the poor server. He didn't cook the food. Because sometimes crap happens. I have to edit myself. Sometimes that happens, right? And so it really is about, it's not about you can never complain about something. It's not that you can't hold them to a certain standard. Is that standard reasonable for the circumstance? And is your response to it reasonable for the circumstance? There is such a thing as killing a mosquito with an atomic bomb. The gross overreactions, and guilty. I've done it. I've done it on these shows.
It made me think of something funny, quick story, but my wife Haley was a server for a while, and she had a regular that came in all the time, would always order a basket of French fries. But she would always complain that there were too many fries in the basket, because she couldn't just stop when she was done eating. She needed the exact amount of fries in the basket that she was going to eat at that given time. Too little or too much was a reason to complain.
Well, there's also sometimes a very fine line between being a Karen and needing to be medicated. For OCD. Yeah. I mean, there is a line between those two things. But so yeah, I just thought this would be an interesting discussion, something a little different, and don't mean to offend anyone named Karen. So if you're offended, I'm sorry. We weren't trying to be a Karen. Don't you be a Karen because we use the word Karen. So that's going to do it, folks, for this week's episode of our show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next Monday with another episode of the DVC Show. Have a great week.